There is so much we could talk about with modification, but I'll keep it really simple. When you add information to a verb, noun, adjective, adverb, phrase, or clause, we refer to this as modification. It's a grammatical term. Often, modification simply answers a question before it is asked, such as where, when, how, by whom, etc., etc. I'm going to take you through this journey now step by step. The most basic form of modification, you probably already know that an adjective modifies a noun. All right, for example, book, red book, big red book, okay? And that an adverb modifies a verb or an adjective. We're going to look at examples now for each of these. Example 1. Could you please bring a powerful drill to the cottage tomorrow? Well, what was the question answered there by the highlighted modification? Well, the question was, does the drill need to be powerful or just average? Yeah, so very often it's important we think ahead, we plan when we're writing, we plan our sentences. And when we're about to speak to someone, we should quickly run through and brainstorm, hey, that would be really useful vocab. Hey, that would be great modification to put into a sentence, an answer to a question. Example 2, the driver reacted swiftly and only just avoided the sinkhole. So again, any words you're not sure about, pause the video, have a quick look. So what was the question answered here? Was the driver's reaction fast or slow? Well, the driver reacted swiftly. That means quickly. Therefore, it's better than just saying the driver only just avoided the sinkhole. For all we know, the driver might not have been concentrating. Well, as soon as we say reacted swiftly, we're adding detail. We're making the picture clearer and more interesting. Example 3, her serve is exceptionally accurate. Question answered, just how accurate? Good for you. I'm terrible at tennis. We're going to look now at types of introductory modifying clauses. Modifying clauses tell us something about a main subject. They answer a question before we ask it. So again, it's all about giving information which we feel will be useful before someone has to ask a question. So introductory modifying clauses are absolutely key to effective academic writing. We've come up with 5 typical forms. We're not going to use overly complicated grammatical terminology here. We've probably had enough of that already, right? Let's go very simply type 1. If we start with a verb plus ing, in a modifying clause at the beginning of a sentence, for example, that's where we're going to focus on them for now. Yeah, it's considered active. Don't worry, we'll look at examples. Type 2, verb plus ed, or the irregular past tense, is considered passive. Okay, so we've got active and passive. We'll look in detail. Type 3, if a modifying clause, especially introductory modifying clause, starts with a preposition, words such as in, for, upon, by, etc., that's something that we can actually then focus on as a modifying clause of a main subject. Type 4, comparative. Type 5, contrast. Comparison is when you look at similarities. Contrast is when you focus on the difference. Here we go. We're going to look at each of these and then we'll do a quiz. Type 1, verb plus ing is considered active. Example, running for the tram, comma. Notice the punctuation. After an introductory modifying clause, in this case a verb plus ing, we must have a comma, and then after that comma, the subject of the idea from that first clause, which in this case is who was running for the tram. Running for the tram, Tim fell into a hole. What's the question that's answered? What was Tim doing when he fell in the hole? Delivering the speech in good spirit, comma. Ms. White captivated her audience. Now notice Ms. White captivated her audience is an independent idea. It's a complete idea. And also we want to know what was Ms. White doing, or how did she feel? Well, that's the question that's being asked. How did Ms. White feel delivering the speech in good spirit? Good spirit means that somebody feels good. Pause the video, steal as many ideas as you can and put them into your essays. Okay, type 2. Verb plus ed, or the irregular verb form of the past tense, is considered passive, okay, in this particular setup. Example 3. Exhausted by the journey. Immediately we say, who was exhausted by the journey? Answer, each prisoner. So when you're writing this type of introductory clause, again, put a comma, put the correct subject afterwards. Who received the verb, if you think about it in terms of object or subject. And we wanted to explain something. We wanted to say, why did each prisoner sleep so soundly? And we put that before we actually started introducing the main subject. And that's the advantage of these structures. You've got information nicely put away at the beginning. We know what it refers to, and then we can continue the story in perhaps a very simple subject-verb-object sentence, as in example 3. Example 4, destroyed by the tsunami. Okay, what was destroyed? Well, the village was destroyed by the tsunami. Tell us more. The village has since been rebuilt, completely rebuilt. Great news. What we wanted to say at the beginning was, why did the village need to have been rebuilt? Yeah, so this again is just giving you an extra tool to add information. Don't go too complicated to begin with. Look at the structures, use them, steal them, put them into your own essays. As you become more confident, you can create more complicated sentences. Type 3, prepositional. A preposition, as we said, is a word such as by, upon, for, in, on, at, etc. Example 5, by accepting these terms and conditions. Interesting. Comma, you, okay, so in this case you are the subject, are obliged to make the agreed monthly payments. We've all been there, probably gas, electric, etc. By accepting these terms, what's the question being answered by this clause? Why are you obliged? Well, you're obliged because you've accepted the terms and conditions. We've got that information out of the way at the beginning. We put a comma and then we put the main subject so that we're not putting modification next to the wrong subject. We'll look at that in different examples. Example 6, upon hearing the news, comma, Shelley. So we know Shelley heard the news, is correct. What did Shelley do? Shelley started to quietly cry into her pillow. Very sad. Question answered, when did Shelley start to cry? You might argue that it's why did Shelley start to cry? Yeah, it was the news. But upon is actually a preposition that focuses on time. We say, when did Shelley start crying? She started crying when she heard the news, and we then know that she was quietly crying into her pillow. Therefore, very interesting sentences, but without getting all the information mixed up in the wrong way. Next, comparative. Unlike his father, so like or unlike, very straightforward, these are comparisons. Brad, okay, we know that we're comparing Brad and the father now because we have comma, then Brad is a Francophile. He likes the French. Question answered, do Brad and his father have the same opinion of the French? Let's have a look. Unlike, if it said like, yes, we'd say he does. If it's unlike, no, he doesn't. For some reason, his father doesn't like the French. Question 8. Like the impact from a blacksmith's hammer, Graham's punch knocked the mugger out cold. If you're not sure of any of those pieces of vocabulary, pause the video, add it to your list. Great opportunity to increase your vocabulary. How hard does Graham punch? That's the question. It's a very colourful introduction, like the impact from a blacksmith's hammer. That's a hard impact. The punch knocked the mugger out cold. Very simply speaking, Graham's done his good deed for the day. Finally, contrast. Very similar in some ways to comparison. Always notice that we have that introductory clause. We have the comma, then we have the main subject that it refers to. It could be subject, could be object in a passive or more active form. Example 9. Despite being rather obese, the bank robber outran 3 police officers and escaped. Well, what's the question answered? Why would we not expect the thief to outrun the police officers? Answer? Well, he's rather obese. So there you go. A very useful way to create a contrast to answer the question why in almost an unexpected outcome. It's quite interesting. Example 10. Although the shock of the change in temperature is rather unpleasant, comma, a cold shower every morning is highly motivating. So the question answered here. Is there a negative effect of a cold shower to contrast with the positive? Bit more complicated, but if you just think about it in terms of why would we have a cold shower if it is such an unpleasant feeling in the morning and it shocks us? Well, because that shock is highly motivating. There you go. So what we've done here is given you the opportunity to learn and improve on 5 types of introductory modifying clauses. You'll notice in some examples later in the course, especially when we start looking at the writing lessons, that we can swap around the location of this particular type of modification. For now, let's keep it simple. Do the quiz, please, that's attached. Have a look at the explanations. Go through these examples again. Before we move on to the final 2 points, make a note of where we are, all the topics we've been through, and notice how they all combine. We can't have a good sentence if it's not parallel. We want to use comparisons. Conditionals, they add great opportunity to show that you know how to use your tenses, etc. And modification is the cherry on the cake.